outside, I see the born of no return. It's just ahead now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just ahead.
Well, good evening. It's Monday again, April 28th, 2014. I tell you, April's almost gone already. Funny thing happens when you get a little older. Seems like time starts moving much, much faster. You have much more to look back on than you have to look forward to. Well, anyway, that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. My name is Gary Hendershot, and for the next hour, I'm going to be barking at the moon. Let's just see what's in the news this week. Well, I guess probably the biggest item for us here in the U.S. is yet another flurry of some wild and crazy weather. Now, to be honest with you, it is that time of year. Springtime, we got this part of the country called Tornado Alley. And this time of year, it's not at all unusual for tornadoes to come flying through the central section of the United States. This past week, though, there has been a considerable number of tornadoes, more than usual. Reports are that as many as 31, some say more, but at least 31 tornadoes were reported by our National Weather Agency, and they hit areas as wide as Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Louisiana, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. This time around, it looks like Arkansas got hit the worst. There are reports that at least 14 people were killed in Arkansas. Some say as many as 18. Frankly, it's not over. They're expecting more of these wild and crazy storms to come flying through that part of the country. So you folks down that way, batten down the hatches. It's going to be some crazy weather. Let's see. Quapaw, Quapaw. That's a small town in Oklahoma on the border with Kansas. Apparently one person got killed there. It's wild and crazy. Now, of course, you're going to hear the man-made global warming proponents come out and say, if you had been paying your damn carbon taxes, you wouldn't have got whacked with those tornadoes. If you buy your carbon indulgences, all those tornadoes will go away, and the Dust Bowl of the 1930s never would have been a factor if you'd have been paying carbon taxes all these years. So, it's you yuppies in your SUVs that's causing these here tornadoes and the hole in the ozone layer and the droughts in Central Africa. It's all your fault. You yuppies with your damn SUVs, you should be paying a big tax to be driving those, and then everything would be fine. Yeah, right. Let's talk about some more fairy tales. We've had kind of a rash of bankers meeting their demise, and I think I've mentioned it once or twice. You kind of shrug your shoulders, people dying in weird ways. There's that one guy apparently committed suicide with a nail gun, shot himself in the back of the head 2-3 times with a nail gun. Apparently that didn't quite do it, so he shot himself in the chest a few times too. I mean, people, who are in the banking industry seem to be dying in some very unusual ways. How about this story? It's out of Blacklisted News. The first paragraph on this. It doesn't get any more Orwellian than this. Wall Street mega banks crashed the U.S. financial system in 2008. Hundreds of thousands of financial industry workers lose their job. Then, beginning late last year, a rash of suspicious deaths start to occur among current and former bank employees. Next, we learn that 4 of the Wall Street mega banks likely hold over $680 billion face amount of life insurance on their workers, payable to the banks, not the families. We asked their federal regulator for details of this life insurance under a Freedom of Information Act request, and we're told the information constitutes trade secrets. How about that? Ain't that precious? Ain't that precious? Ryan Crane, 37, died at his home. Dennis Lee, 33-year-old. A lot of these are young fellas and ladies. It's not just restricted to men. And a lot of these fellas are they're mid-level managers, okay? I mean, these are not the types who have keys to the executive washroom, but they're kind of in line for bigger things. And many speculate that what's happening here is that the middle rung is kind of being eliminated so that there is not a prosecutory path to the uppers. And wouldn't that be diabolical? You know, if you do have a key to the executive washroom and you were given orders to these middle-level managers to do this, that, or the other thing, and it was, you know, a little shady, a little sleazy, and you kind of figured maybe your bank was about to be investigated and you didn't want it leading back to you, you know, you take a, you know, page right out of the mafia scorecard and just, you know, eliminate the hitmen who actually pulled off the hit so that it never gets back to the Don. What do you think of that? You think that might have something to do with what's been going on here? I tell you, some of these deaths have been very suspicious, very, very suspicious. Then again, for all I know, you know, it could just be yet another totally unrelated coincidence. And if you believe that, I got some bank stocks to sell you. Don't you just love Obamacare? I sure do. Because I tell you, without Obamacare, I wouldn't have any news out there to really give me a giggle, you know? It's just, you know, all the interesting news would just dry up if not for Obamacare. Actually, there was a couple weeks there where I just couldn't find any interesting tidbits on Obamacare. But this week there's an interesting tete-a-tete. You know, you kind of figured when Obama was pushing this affordable health care thing, you kind of figured that, you know, maybe you could count on the Republicans to, you know, put the kibosh on it, you know, because it just didn't seem like it was, you know, well, you kind of thought the Republicans had a golden opportunity here to make some points. Yeah, okay, you know, they could have killed that Obamacare thing, and they probably would have won the White House and probably would have won the Senate. And, you know, everybody would have been very thankful because, I mean, in polls, 71% of the people wanted nothing to do with that thing. But it got jammed down our throats anyway. So now it's here. We got it. And I'm sure you've already signed up for your Obamacare, and I'm sure you're very happy with it. I'm sure you got excellent quality health care at a very affordable price. Right? Right? I mean, that was the promise, right? Right? And you haven't had any trouble finding a doctor who would take your Obamacare? Right? Yeah, right. Well, those of you who were counting on the Republicans to do something about Obamacare, expecting that, maybe when the Republicans get in charge next time around, they might scrap the thing or at least, take out some of the really heinous portions of it that are absolutely offensive to so many. Well, don't be too sure, because, the trial balloons are already floating. With the news this week that more than 600,000 Washington state residents have acquired new health care plans through the state exchange, U.S. Representative Kathy McMorris Rodgers, for those of you watching the video part of this presentation, that's her pictured over my shoulder, said it is unlikely the Affordable Health Care Act will be repealed. Now, she is a Republican. She's one of these ones that we were kind of hoping was going to help us out of this mess, We need to look at reforming the exchanges, the Eastern Washington Republican said Thursday. The 5-term Congresswoman and chair of the House Republican Conference kicked off her re-election campaign this week with visits to Walla Walla. She faces Democratic challenger Joe Pacutas, I guess. Well, bottom line is the Republicans are already throwing in the towel. They're already saying, it's in, there's about 7 million people across the country that have signed up, so it's too late now. We'll just, raise the white flag and surrender, damn Obamacare, oh well, we're stuck with it. Yeah. And this lady's kind of leading the charge on that. Well, not all the Republicans are down with that plan. As a matter of fact, in Austin, Texas, the political activist, I guess you could call him. I mean, frankly, I think this guy's about as sleazy as they come. I mean, he just drips of sleaze. But, even a scumbag sometimes says something you can get down with. So, you got to give Karl Rove credit where credit's due. Caught on a flight from Washington to Texas Sunday, Karl Rove, the guru of the GOP political establishment, was not pleased with a statement by Kathy McMorris Rodgers of Washington, a member of the House Republican leadership team, which sounded like a surrender in the fight to overturn Obamacare. Asked if the comment by Republican leadership acquiesced to the continuation of the Affordable Health Care Act was helpful to GOP chances in November, Rove said it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. Every once in a while, even a scumbag says something you can agree with and be down with. And yeah, on this particular note, I kind of agree with Karl Rove. If the Republicans want back in control, they had damn well better come out strongly against Obamacare. They had better come out strongly against this amnesty for these anywhere from 15 to 50 million people that are here illegally, having crossed our borders in conflict with our laws. And I would like to make one other condition on you damn Republicans. 'Cause every time you Republicans get in, you find some new war to get us tangled up in. Keep your damn pistol in your pocket this time around, and we might actually have some respect for you. Speak softly. Carry a big stick is still a good idea. Don't go looking for trouble. But if it finds you, be ready to handle it. That is kind of what we'd like to have out of government. This preemptive, well, gee, something bad happened. We got to go kick somebody's ass. Who's on the short list for ass kickings this week? Saddam? Okay. Yeah, we haven't kicked his ass in a while. Yes, I love Obamacare. Just absolutely love it. At least it gives me some news items to cover with a bit of jocularity. Let's see, what else is here? Oh, yeah. How many of you out there go out to the grocery store and look for something advertised in big bold letters on a box of Cheerios saying, with new and improved GMO oats? Get your GMO Wheaties. I mean, you just, your mouth starts watering when you find out it's got that new and improved GMO stuff in it, right? Right? Yeah, you and the Chinese, if it said right on the front of the box contains GMO, you probably wouldn't buy it, would you? Well, there are places in the United States who kind of want to do the same thing they're doing over in Europe. They want to give you, the consumer, a fair shot. They're not telling manufacturers that they cannot put GMO product in their goods for sale. But what they do want is, look, if you're going to put that stuff in there, tell the people. Let the people make an informed decision. Well, the latest is I-522 coming out of Washington State. Washington State has on its ballot an initiative that says, look, you can put GMOs in your products, no problem there. But if you're gonna, you got to tell the consumer what's in there. So you, as an informed consumer, can say, okay, this brand here has got this new and improved GMO, whatchamacallit, in it. This product here, which is very, very similar, does not. Which do I want to buy? At that point, it's on you. Okay? And that, in a free society, is how it should be. An informed consumer voting with their dollar. Okay? That's how it should be. You have a right to know what's in the stuff you're going to put in your body. And if you make a choice not to consume GMO, you should have that right. The idea being, if there is labeling involved, there will be pressure on General Mills and these other companies to offer you a choice. Matter of fact, I understand General Mills is offering at least one version of their Cheerios product that does not have GMO in it because, they are sensitive to market demand. And if enough people put up their hand and say, no, I don't want the GMO, they will produce products that don't have it. Well, there's an outfit out there, a lobbying group, that is basically pro-GMO. I mean, they've been hired by these manufacturers, and a lot of manufacturers give them contributions to lobby people like Washington State against this initiative 522. And just recently, they've had to release a list of their donors. Now, if you wish to be an activist and you wish not to support companies, again, vote with your dollar. You wish not to support companies that are in favor of putting GMO products in your foodstuffs without informing you, you should know who these contributors are. And again, consider voting with your dollar. PepsiCo, Nestle, Coca-Cola, General Mills, ConAgra, Campbell's Soup, The Hershey Company, J.M. Smucker Company, Kellogg, Mandela's Global, Flowers Foods, Abbott Nutrition, Pinnacle Foods, Dean Foods, McCormick and Company, Land O'Lakes, Cargill, the Hillshire Brands, Bunge North America, Bimbo Bakeries, Del Monte Foods, Ocean Spray Cranberries, Hormel Food Corporation, Bumblebee, Welch's Foods, Shearer Foods, Rich Products, Clement Pappas, Sunny Delight, Bush Brothers, the Clorox Company, GMO Clorox, Bruce Foods, Moody Dunbar. Know the companies who don't want you to know. And as always, make up your own damn mind. I'll be back right after these important commercial announcements. Alrighty, we're back from our first break of the evening. I'm still trying to get over the fact that April is almost over and done with. I mean, it just seems, I don't know. Maybe we're, it's like an episode of Star Trek. We've entered some kind of, time displacement field or something. It just seems that the years are whizzing past faster than I can deal with it. Ah, well. Moving right along. Ukraine. I've heard people going back and forth on Ukraine, and I'm just an old country boy with straw for brains. This stuff's way over my head. I kind of got a feel for what went on here. I mean, there was a democratically elected government in charge of Ukraine that was kind of walking the fence. I mean, they were trying to walk the fence. They were trying to, kiss up a little bit to NATO, and they were trying to kiss up a little bit to the Russians. They were, I guess you would call them centrists. Okay, yeah, they had buddies in Moscow, and Moscow was paying them off, and yeah, they were, leaning a little more heavily towards Moscow than they were NATO, but they weren't trying to make any trouble. They were trying to walk the fence between these two power brokers, and of course, geographically, they sit kind of right in the middle. They got NATO on one side and Russia on the other, and they really don't want to piss either of them off. So they're trying to walk a very fine line. Well, it appears that a whole lot of your tax money, and tax money from a lot of the European nations too, as I understand it, were funneled into some thugs within Ukraine who raised a lot of hell and basically brought down the democratically elected government of Ukraine and installed what can only be described as a coup government. The government that is in charge of Ukraine now was certainly not elected to be there, but they are somewhat more friendly to United States and NATO interests than the former regime. Therefore, by definition, they're great guys, and we're hugging and kissing them, throwing money at them like crazy, and we have recognized them, and we now consider them the legitimate government of Ukraine. And the poor guy who was poor, he was far from poor, but the poor schmuck who was the democratically elected president of Ukraine is standing over in Russia saying, what the hell happened? What the hell happened? One day I was president. Now I'm in exile. That aside, there is now a government in Kiev, depending on where you're from, that is pro-Western. Okay, they want to be our buddies. And of course, anybody who wants to be our buddies, we like, right? Well, in eastern Ukraine, the population is predominantly of Russian extraction. Genetically, linguistically, culturally, they are very, very close to Russia. Most of them, if you ask them, would identify themselves as being Russians. They speak Russian. They have friends and family in Russia. They would prefer that Ukraine stay connected, at least loosely, to Russia. Well, of course, our buddies in Western Ukraine are trying to hold a country together. It'd be kind of like, well, say Texas split off and decided they wanted to rejoin with Mexico. Well, a lot of Texans have friends and family in the rest of the United States. They would probably object, right? Right? Well, that's kind of what's going on in Ukraine. These folks in the East, they would really like to separate from Western Ukraine, and they'd like to be their own country, or maybe even become a part of Russia, kind of like what happened in Crimea. But the central government says, wait a minute. We either have a nation here or we don't. And they're trying to hold their country together. It's difficult for somebody like me to really say one group is the good guys and one group is the bad guys. Now, I know. Everybody in this chat room is going to chide me and say, oh, the CIA financed these guys who are in charge now. It's a coup. It's this, that, and the other thing. They're bad guys, and you ought to fall on the side of Russia and Putin. And I got to scratch my... Now, in situations like this, there is rarely a clearly defined good guy or bad guy. This guy Putin, compared to what we're putting at the table, is a man. We got Pee Wee Herman sitting at the negotiating table. They got Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, I got a lot of respect for Putin. I don't trust him, and I certainly do not consider him to be operating in the interest of the United States. He is, without a doubt, a Russian nationalist who's doing what he thinks is best for Russia and the Russian people. We should have some respect for that. Some have said that this Ukraine issue could be the spark that lights off World War III. Of course, I think about it. I think of how many continents we've already got troops killing the locals, and how many continents on the world do you have to be killing people before it is a world war? But that aside, I really don't think that the United States and Europe are willing to go to war with Russia over Ukraine. I really don't. I do believe that Russia is willing to fight on behalf of ethnic Russians if they come under pressure by Ukrainian authorities. Now, right now, there's a lot of pushing and shoving over there, and there was just recently some pretty bad riots where some people were severely injured. It looked to me in the videos I saw like the Ukrainian police were very reserved. They were putting themselves in between two factions, one group that was pro-central government of Ukraine, another group that was let's hook up with Russia. The cops were getting right in between the two of them, trying to keep them apart. And I think some cops got injured in the process, trying to keep these two groups of people from going at each other. I'm looking at the way this gang of crooks who are currently in charge in Kiev, I'm looking at the way they're handling themselves, and so far I would have to give them high marks for trying to keep the peace. So these guys may actually be more savvy operators than I thought at first. Yeah, I may not like the way they came into power, but right now they are in power, and they appear to be using that power delicately. They're not coming in there with a big club and just knocking everybody in the back of the head. So far, it looks like they're being very restrained in their use of their power and authority. I don't think this is going to be the one that's going to start World War III. At least I hope not. I think if the Russian nationals who live in eastern Ukraine come under a lot of pressure, we might just see Putin move in to protect them. I'm hearing the music in the background, so I'm going to have to slide out of here while the network sells some products, keep the lights burning. We'll be back with some more Wide Awake news right after these important announcements. Please stand by. Alrighty, we are back, and that is the last break of the evening, so I got about 15 minutes to try and wrap this material up. Looks like in the most recent FUBAR in Ukraine, 14 people were injured. One cop was being treated for, I guess, what we would call post-traumatic stress syndrome. Apparently a homemade grenade went up a little too close to him. The police failed to contain the crowd as protesters clashed with each other using firecrackers, smoke grenades, baseball bats, and sticks. A group of about 1,000 neo-Nazi thugs. Now, neo-Nazi thugs, this report came out of Russia Today. So the neo-Nazi thugs would be the fellows who are currently in charge in Kiev. A group of about 1,000 neo-Nazi thugs has come to Donetsk from a town that I can't pronounce on Monday to cause provocations. Now, according to, again, you got to consider the source. This came from Russia Today, so they're obviously putting their spin on this news report. We were expecting an attack. We had objective information. Really, the guys arrived with baseball bat sticks and rods. Those were the ultras from this town I cannot pronounce. It's Dnipropetrovsk. I'm sorry. An old southern boy just can't pronounce something with that many syllables. According to our info, there were also people from FC Dynamo Kiev fan base. I'm not even sure what that's all about. Initially, there were about 2,000 local anti-Kiev activists. Now, these are the ones who want their portion of Ukraine to hook up with the Russians. More and more people joined us at an incredible pace as we made our way. When we reached them, the pro-Kiev radicals. There were about 1,000 of us. About 1,000 of them, Again, that report comes out of Russia Today. They're going to put their slant on it. What's interesting is our media here in the United States is just totally ignoring it. Now, I can tell you that if there had been an article in the say the New York Times or the Washington Post, the guys in Kiev would have, been dressed in bunny suits, and the guys who were supporting Russia would have been the ones carrying the baseball bats and would have had the skinheads. Okay, I mean, so you got to figure whichever side is reporting on it, they're going to put their spin, give it their propaganda. It's so hard for me to really find a good guy or a bad guy here. I wish I knew a good solution to this problem. I suspect in the end, the only way that the people of Ukraine might be able to avoid an all-out civil war might be to partition the country. I just don't know. I mean, if I were sitting at the peace table trying to get these two sides to come to some kind of an agreement, short of knocking each other in the head with a baseball bat. I think perhaps letting eastern Ukraine go their way, letting western Ukraine go their way, might be the better part of valor to avoid an all-out civil war. It is starting to look like it may just come down to it. If the folks from western Ukraine attempt to impose their authority on the eastern Ukrainians by force, and there is bloodshed, all indications are that the Russians may indeed involve themselves, at least to a limited degree, in the name of protecting their cousins and their friends and family. You know, and most of the world's going to sit there and say, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess they got a right to do that." The rest of the world's going to say, "Oh my God, you've invaded Ukraine." And we forget so soon that up until very recently, Ukraine was part of Russia, which is how those Russian people got there. And of course, if you go back a little further in history than that, you remember situations of very similar to this back in the late 1930s, where Germany invaded Czechoslovakia and Poland in attempts to keep their brethren, their German brethren, from being oppressed. So, could this be the spark that starts an all-out World War III? I don't think so. But it just really depends on whether cooler heads can prevail. It just really does. You know, I wish I knew what to say about Ukraine. I mean, you hate to see people in turmoil like that, but is Ukraine really something that we want American kids to die over? Is that the one that's worth it? Is that the one that's worth it? Consider. And as always, make up your own damn mind. It's a very complex issue. Very complex issue. I'm not sure there are any easy answers. The U.S. Justice Department on Monday said it will begin collecting data on stops, searches, and arrests made in 5 U.S. cities to weed out possible racial bias within the criminal justice system. Later this year, black men were 6 times more likely and Latino men were 2.5 times more likely to be imprisoned than white men in 2012. So I think chances are is they're just going to step up the arrests of white men. That would solve the problem, wouldn't it? Yeah, let's just arrest more white men. No problem. The Justice Department. I mean, could it possibly be that black men and or Latino men are that much more likely to be involved in committing crimes? I don't know. See, the problem is if you phrase it like that, if you phrase it that black men are 6 times more likely to commit a crime, Latino men are 2.5 times more likely to commit a crime than white men. If you phrase it like that, you're racist. Yeah. Wow. You're racist. But if you say you're going to investigate the policies of the police department for apprehending and imprisoning 6 times more black men, 2.5 times more Latino men than white men, then you're certainly not racist. No, you're trying to find impartiality in the justice system. And the obvious thing to do is to increase the number of white people that you arrest. That solves the problem. On a similar note, Justice Department, our friend Eric Holder, if you're watching the video feed, it's Eric Holder that's pictured over my shoulder. Yeah. Now, this report, I have no idea if this report is accurate. It was published in the examiner.com. And for all I know, this is absolute hooey. This is one of those ones where you're just going to have to consider and make up your own damn mind. But on Friday, John Jacob Schmidt of Radio Free Redoubt said that according to Stuart Rhodes, all of you know who Stuart Rhodes is, founder of Oath Keepers, Attorney General Eric Holder has approved drone strikes against the Bundy Ranch. Remember the Bundy Ranch? You know, folks in the audience, I think you guys are pretty smart, but there's a lot of folks out there that got the attention span of a gnat and probably don't even remember anything about Bundy Ranch and cattle rustling by the Bureau of Land Management. Don't remember anything about that. But anyway, Stuart Rhodes is saying that that Attorney General Eric Holder has approved drone strikes against the Bundy Ranch to take place sometime in the next 48 hours. According to Schmidt, the information came from a source Oath Keeper has within the Department of Defense. The source, according to the report, allegedly said, unnamed sources allegedly said that maybe a drone strike is going to, okay? Now, when I see all those qualifiers in there, I guess, maybe not. The problem is, considering what happened in Waco, considering what happened in Ruby Ridge, considering some of the really questionable decisions that have been made by the U.S. government over the years, I could see Eric Holder saying, yeah, let's go after that white cracker out there in Nevada. Let's zap him with a frickin' Hellfire missile. Let's blow that. I could see it happening. That's the scary thing about having a government that is totally out of control. A report like that comes down with unnamed sources saying oof, ifs, maybes, and all kinds of qualifiers in there. And you know what? I can see him doing it. I got a picture in my mind of this idiot sending a drone out to Nevada and blowing up that man's cattle herd and his wife and children and everything else he can find. These guys are just crazy enough to do something like that. Rhodes said that Holder felt justified in his decision based on comments made by Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Remember a report I made last week where I said Harry Reid was calling that guy Bundy a domestic terrorist? Well, hey, if you're a domestic terrorist, you got a target painted on your back. Eric Holder is going to send a Hellfire missile up your butt. I'm hearing the music in the background, folks. That's going to be it for me this week. I'll be back next Monday to do a little bit more barking at the moon. Y'all have a good week.
None of us are leaving here alive. Whoa, what will you say? What will you say? What will you do? What will you do? What will you do? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around? Oh, I'm calling calling out to you. Won't you won't you turn around? Oh, the point of no return is just ahead now.